What is up, my friend? Welcome to episode number 16 of the Anthony John Amick Show. And today we're going to be talking about how to be more assertive. And I'm going to be bringing on one of my past attendees and one of my past coaching clients to share her journey and the wisdom that she's really found in being more assertive. And I've chosen her specifically because I've witnessed the incredible turnaround in her life. And I really believe that her message and her path really going to serve you. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Anthony John Amick Podcast, the one and only podcast designed to help you become unstoppable in life and business. My name is Anthony John Amick. My friends call me AJ. And my goal with this podcast is to help you remember who you truly are so you can maintain your center in the chaos, embody your potential, and unlock freedom in your life and business. That being said, let's get into today's show.
All right, well, welcome back. Today I'm bringing you one of my past clients and attendees of my uprising event, my big transformational uprising event. And her name is Amy Clark, and she's a life coach who helps moms take back control of their lives and really kind of live and have unstoppable confidence and certainty. And speaking of taking control of your life and becoming unstoppable, I have a webinar all about the 3 ancient leadership secrets entrepreneurs and experts are using to generate more momentum, increase their income and impact without selling their soul or building fancy funnels. And so you can learn more about that free training by going to trainingwithaj.com. You know me, I like keeping things simple. And I know that training is going to help give you some really, really amazing insights into these forgotten keys that are allowing a lot of people to scale their business and really lead a team while really enjoying their life. And many people have said that training has changed their life. So make sure you register for that free training at trainingwithaj.com. So with that being said, let's bring on Amy Clark to talk about how to be more assertive. Amy Clark, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing great.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited that you're here on the podcast. I'm excited to have you on. And can you believe it's been almost 2 years since you came to the first, well, it's really the second. It was the second uprising event I did. Can you believe it's been 2 years?
That's unbelievable. 2 whole years.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
That was a big event. It was a big event. I know for you. It was definitely really a big event for me, lo and behold, unknown to most people. But I'm curious, what was your experience like at the uprising?
Oh my God. So I got to be honest that when we signed up for it and I was on my way there, I was super nervous about all the emails that you sent and they we're going to get into the depths of your soul and that kind of thing. Cause I was the kind of I don't do that. So my plan going into it, the whole do and just kind of follow up and act busy the rest of the time. So that was my plan the whole time going into it, but it didn't really work out that way.
No, definitely doesn't work out at my events. No way.
So it wasn't going to work out that way. And I was like, oh shit, I don't know. I can't go home. I didn't even take my own car.
Yeah.
It was super transformational and just really got me to a place of power and control over my own self that I didn't know I didn't have because I thought I had it all together. And when I describe it to other people, when they ask me what was this thing you went to? I'm like, okay, it was sort of like going to 10 years of therapy in 3 days. Really, it was just got all the bullshit out of the way and got straight to the thing. And you and Jonathan did a great job of, I think there were 4 or 5 of us at that weekend. And you guys did a great job of each person got what they needed, I think, out of it. And that's really hard to do, to be able to tailor it to all different people at all different places, but use the same kind of framework to get to where you need to go.
Totally,
so
yeah.
It was awesome. I would definitely do it again.
Awesome. Yeah, we have it down to a science, man. It's getting better and better and better every single time we do it. We have our next one coming up February 6th or the 9th, actually, here in Dallas. Yeah. We're going to have I think 10 people there this time, actually. So that's going to be fun. What do you feel like?
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah, it is. So what do you feel like the uprising really transformed in your life?
Gosh. So the first thing was that I cared way too much about what other people thought. And I didn't think that I did. So I had to get to a place where I realized that, okay, yeah, I'm letting everybody else run my life and not me, because I'm trying to make everybody else happy. Because I had this idea about myself that I didn't know. I thought that I was doing a pretty good job of keeping it all together. And then I realized pretty quickly that came all unraveled. I was like, oh, this is, my own bullshit just right there in my face. My vision was clearer. Everything looked bright and crispy, and clear because I kind of knew, like, I wasn't worried all the time about where am I going to next? Where are they going to go? And really what enabled me to launch my coaching business instead of just talking about wanting to do it one day was getting out of that weekend and knowing that I didn't really have to worry about what other people thought anymore. So yeah, super powerful.
It's amazing. What was like the biggest memory that really like sticks with you from that day? I remember the one for me that sticks out for me, but I'm curious, what was like the memory for you that sticks with you?
We did that. I don't give a fuck. I had reached a pretty good level of confidence by then. So I was like ready for it. I'm like, this is going to be awesome. But it completely caught me off guard. Like my own self completely caught me off guard.
Yeah.
And I don't like to cry in front of people. I don't like to just be vulnerable in front of people, but I couldn't even really help it. And I just remember standing there just knowing like, okay, I got to figure out how to get through this whole thing. And then I was really, really angry at you for making me do it. But you being able to just not let me get away with skirting away from my anger, like just having to sit there with it for a minute because I was super scared of letting things happen. I'm a real busy person. So I move around a lot. I keep myself really busy. I always have something else so that I don't have to stop. So I think that was one of the biggest takeaways is that was probably the first time in my life that I actually had to just stop and let something happen without trying to fix it. And then it was totally fine. And I didn't expect it to. I don't know what I thought was going to happen. So that was super powerful for me.
Yeah, our minds have a weird way of making things way more bigger, a lot bigger, a lot more scarier than they really are.
Yeah.
Today, I really want to talk about like how to be more assertive and really share some like keys and insights and how to do that because you've been on that journey. Mm-hmm. But before we like dive into the tips and strategies and all that stuff, I really want to hop into your life path. And there's a reason that I started with the Uprising event because that event really opened up, I think, some things. Like you came in really needing to set boundaries and be more assertive and really claim your voice. And there was an activity that we did where you couldn't claim your voice. Like I was like, come on. And you're like, I'm trying. Is this not coming out? And I was able to kind of be with you and kind of tap in a bit. And I could understand there was something else going on. I didn't even know what it was. You didn't really know what it was until we started dialoguing about it and talking about it. And then we kind of found that root, right?
Right.
So I'd really like to talk about like you're at this place, you're a life coach, you're helping, moms, you're very comfortable saying no, even at the gym with the coach trainer, all of these things, speaking your truth. But what has your journey been like going from being kind of this people pleaser to now like really owning your power as a woman? Like what's that journey been like?
It's been, I don't want to say it's easy, but it's more of a flow than I thought it would be, if that makes sense. Like there's some really hard work involved. And it took a lot to get to that place of figuring out what the root of the issue was and where that was coming from. Yeah. But I think once that got resolved, there was a pretty natural progression of things that happened after that, where it's just like, I don't think that way as much anymore. I think you described it to me as like a spiral, like I kind of leveled up and was able to do more things than I thought as far as like sticking up for myself and saying no to things and not letting things get to me and not letting things define me that used to define me. Like for example, like stuff that my mom would say to me or things that, my boss would say, and I would just like, stew about it for days and days and days. And I didn't really do that anymore. Once that weekend was over, I was able to kind of look back and say, oh, that doesn't bother me anymore. But then moving forward, I would have to check myself, every once in a while, you fall back into the same kinds of things. It's still there. But I have a different experience now. So I'm able to check with myself and just say, okay, where is this coming from? Does this really serve me? Am I going down like a crazy spiral that I don't need to go down anymore? And really able to be honest with myself and catch it and just say, okay, no, and then make a good decision based on who I am and what I need, and not worry so much about, anybody else. Cause I know I'm not trying to cause harm. I know I'm not trying to, offend or hurt anybody. So whatever I decide to do is my thing. And I know it's the best thing for me. And if that hurts other people, like that's not really any of my business.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Now in episode 3, I talked with Christopher John Stubbs on how childhood wounds impact the growth of our business. Mm-hmm. So do you mind sharing like yours? What was yours that was impacting your ability to set boundaries, your ability to be assertive? Like what was that thing that we discovered that we're able to bring some healing to, that really was, as I always say, pulling the root pearl from the string of events that affects everything. What was that for you?
Yeah. So I always had kind of a complicated relationship with my mom. Like we're kind of okay right now, but it always was kind of strange as far as like the way that she talked to me and the way that I related to her. And the root thing really was, it came down to like one thing that I remembered when I was probably 17, where we had gotten into it, and I stood up to my mom. Like whatever was happening, I don't remember the details of it, but whatever was going on, I felt like I had something to say. And I was, part of it was I was 17 and I knew better than everybody, but there was something I wanted to do. I was trying to calm down or give myself some space, and she wouldn't let me leave, like wouldn't let me go where I needed to go or get out of what I needed to get out of. And then it turned physical. We got into like, I don't want to say a fist fight, but it was basically like a slapping match between me and my mom. Sure. But I didn't realize how much that really affected me until we did that thing at the event where I was like, oh my God, like when I had to like get out of my box and speak my voice, I couldn't do it. And it kind of came down to, I wasn't ever really allowed to do that. And like I said, I got to a place where I realized it's not really anything that my mom did on purpose, but it was just how she knew to relate to me and how she knew to do her momming thing, whatever she was doing. But I wasn't ever allowed. I was never right. I was never, I never won an argument. I never was able to express my point of view without it being like, well, that's not it, So I always felt like I was wrong all the time. So moving forward as an adult, I was super high achiever. I went to school, went to college, got really good grades, went straight through, got a master's degree, got my license in social work, got a really good job, trying to make everybody else happy, including my clients, trying to make them happy. And when you do business that way, from a place of it's all about making them happy and not serving yourself, you kind of cut yourself short.
So good.
So it, I don't know. It was really interesting to figure out what the root of that was, because you don't want to be like, no, I was 17, I'm way older than that now. But there really was a pattern of that where I can see over and over and over again the things, when I really reflected on the things that were going through my mind when I was scared to start my own business and scared to start taking on my own clients. And I don't know if I can be a coach because, like whatever, all these other complications I had with licensing and whatever, all those things those were the same words that kept coming back to me. You can't do that. You're not right. That's not for you. You need to step back, shut your mouth. Nobody wants to hear what you have to say. That's a big one for me that used to come up over and over again, but that's how it was at my house. Cause I was a little bit more outspoken, I think, than my sisters and my brother.
Sure.
And so it was just like, shut up. Nobody wants to hear you. Nobody wants to hear what you have to say. So I always felt like I was wrong, and I had to kind of step back, because that's what made everybody else happy, is if I was quiet and didn't rock the boat. So I didn't want to rock the boat in my family, in my business, in my job. I've got a good, stable job. My kids are where they need to be. I didn't want to rock that at all. But, since I started all of that, of course it changes things, but it was not a bad thing. I was just more afraid of my own self.
Sure. So, yeah, and I remember once we identified it, I was like, cool. Let's go out on the porch. I got this technique we use. It takes about 35 minutes, and we did the memory resolution technique. Yeah. And then I remember like that moment, I was like, I felt the whole internal shift. You felt it too. And I was like, I just felt you shift. You good? You're like, yeah. And I was like, what do you want to go inside and tell everybody? I remember we opened the front door and everybody's sitting on the couch because they had just finished some process with Jonathan. Yeah. And you're like, I think you said like, I don't give a fuck what you guys think about me or something like that. But it was like from this very powerful place, and it was awesome. It was really awesome. Yeah. Because when we went through that thing the first time, I really did give a whole lot of fucks what everybody thought. And it didn't feel authentic for me to say that. But at that time, it was finally like, I really meant that. And it really, I turned into a little bit of a beast for a little bit after that. I was just like, well, I don't give a fuck about anything. So, I wanted to like try it out, but, it, like I said, it's still there and it still comes up, but I have way more power over it. So good. Than I ever did before. Awesome. Why do you feel being assertive is like an important attribute for any human being on the planet to embody? Okay. So being assertive, when you can be assertive, that's when you
are able to tell somebody what you think and you feel and what you need and what you want without being mean. So it really helps control stress and anger and like your own personal sense of well-being, because if you're not being assertive and you're just letting people walk all over you, you're not really living in your true self and your true power. So then you're constantly frustrated and pissed off because things aren't going your way, or that's not exactly the way you wanted it to be, but you never really said it in the first place, so you kind of set yourself up for a whole lot of frustration and things like that. I think you can cope better with things when you're assertive because you're standing up for yourself. Sure. But you can do that with and still respect everybody else's rights and beliefs, but just be able to express your own.
So how would you define assertiveness? Because I think a lot of people have kind of a mixed up definition of it. So like just from your experience working with women and, life coaching and stuff, like how would you define assertiveness?
Just plain and simple, being assertive is saying what you want and what you mean, what you need and what you want without being mean.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And what impact do you think that assertiveness has on, let's say, somebody's career or their business or maybe their home life?
It's huge because there's a lot of times that you have to be assertive in order to get what you want, like little tiny things from, I think I told you before about that guy at the gym that was like in my way. And I was like, I don't know what to do because I'm going to mess up my whole workout because this guy's in my way. and it really did. So this is, a year and a half after I went to the uprising thing, but it took me 2 to 3 days to pump myself up for like, I'm going to just tell this guy we need to share. And it didn't work out really great. But once I did, it wasn't a big deal at all. It was just like, hey, I need this to happen. I wasn't really bothered by his response to anything.
Yeah.
So little things like that from your day to day, just walking through life all the way up to like, I applied for a new job this year and I was able to put myself out there for like, a higher up position than what I have, what I've been safe and comfortable with because I know my skills and I know what I need and I know what I want. And being able to start a business in the first place and be able to do things, ending partnerships, starting new partnerships, like all those kinds of things really require being assertive without worrying so much what everybody else is going to do.
I'm sitting here laughing because I remember that conversation with the guy in the gym because you're really worried. You're like, I keep asking the battle rope guy, and you're like, I want him to move. I keep asking him to move, and it's time for me to do battle ropes. And I'm like, yo, bro, can you move? And he like moves, and I'm like, I'm afraid I'm gonna hit him in the dick with battle ropes. And, and I was like, well, just ask him to move, and if he doesn't, let him suffer the consequences of the battle ropes.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is I did a Facebook Live couple of videos with my group that I have with my Facebook group, and just sharing my experience with them because I'm like, okay, if I'm having this much of an issue and I've done all this work and I know what to do and I'm stuck, like somebody's gonna, and I tell you what, like I had the most interaction and people watching and people just laughing right along with me. But then at the same time, they're like, no, seriously, like, oh my God, how did you do that? Because I never would have. And I had two ends. One end was like, I'm going to come over there and punch him. And the other end was like, I would have just figured something else out. I never would have done it.
Sure,
and then I'm like, so what is that? With women, I think that a lot of times we're just primed for like, no, you nurture and care for everyone. So you got to make sure they're good and they're, well, what if I need to be good?
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, no, there's not. I mean, if you're not good, nobody else can be good, right?
Right.
It's like in the whole analogy of you ride in the plane, you put the oxygen mask on yourself before you serve your daughter or your wife or whatever. Same thing, man, when it comes into the house. And I think this is like kind of leads us into the next kind of flow here. Like, so what do you find are really like most people's default modes when it comes to being assertive and really speaking the truth? You've already talked about how women want to really take care of other people. So what do you find are those default modes?
You mean default for like when they can't be assertive? Like what do they go to first?
When they choose not to be assertive, because the reality is every single human being can be assertive, right? If they deal with their fear of, well, what are they going to think about me? Am I going to be the bitch? Am I going to be the asshole?
Yeah.
Like the default mold is usually we shut down, we stonewall, we fight. Like you talked about the guy, I'm going to go punch him in the face. That was a possibility. Yeah. Another one may be like we freeze, like, I guess I'm just not going to do anything. Or we appease. Yeah. And he's like, well, give me 5 minutes. Well, I don't have 5 minutes. Like I get to pick up the kids in 5 minutes. But some people are like, okay, well, I guess I just won't do the battle ropes today. Right? Yeah. The default modes. How do you see that play out for lots of people?
For lots of people, I think there's a huge fear of conflict. And so you kind of look forward to like, okay, so if I say this, but then he responds with something, I got nothing. So you don't want to have that confrontation and you don't want to have that conflict. But I think the root of that is because you're going to piss somebody off, or you think that you're going to come off as a bitch, or that you're going to piss somebody off. And nobody wants to be that. I mean, some people do, but I think a lot of women, especially, they don't want that. They don't want to be like that. They don't want to cause the problem. I don't want to be the person that causes the problem.
Sure.
But, I think you really got to look back at, are you causing a problem, or are you just saying what you need to say? Because there really isn't a bigger problem.
Of course. Well,
I think people have that like fight, flight, or freeze thing. I'm a freeze. My husband calls me a possum because I just kind of freeze up in possum mode, and I'll just kind of stand there and wait for everything to go away. That's kind of what I do. That's my default if I'm not watching it. But other people, they go towards it and they're like, "God, wait, motherfucker, get out of my," but, or they run away and they just go somewhere else and they don't deal with it at all. So. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, they have some really big limiting beliefs when it comes, to being assertive. And as a result, they have like these fears, like the fear of conflict. We talked about that. Fear of upsetting other people. We kind of talked about that. Some people have fear of rejections or maybe feeling overly responsible. So how does somebody become, like, how do they overcome this fear? Because I know, like, going back to your childhood, there's a part of you maybe that's like, well, I'm going to be super nice and people please because I don't want to be like my mother, who was totally mean and totally was very, very assertive on the other side of the spectrum. So the pendulum tends to swing for some people to the total opposite, right? So if we have these default patterns and we become aware of them, then we can start to change them. So how does somebody start overcoming these things?
I think really just being aware of them in the first place is to start with. So you got to kind of stop yourself and be like, what is a story I'm telling myself about this, and really unpack that. That's super powerful for me. It's been real powerful for a couple of my clients where they, so what are you telling yourself about that? And is it true? Is it 100% true? And then you start to realize, like, I'm telling myself that all these things are going to happen. I'm creating this story that hasn't happened. And so I'm basing my actions off of what the outcome of my story is, but it's really just a story. So if you can get to a place where you're humble enough and brave enough to realize that you have made up a story, then you can identify the story and that it is a story, and then come up with some other ones. Because if you can create that one, you definitely can create a different kind.
And what do you mean by story? Like,
with better outcomes. So like it's those beliefs that you're telling yourself. So, like with starting my business in the first place, it was like, I don't have the skills to start a business, or I wasn't trained as a life coach, so I can't do that. Or I don't know that anybody's going to want to hire me. All these things that come up that are fears, and they're all based on fear and rejection and all those things. But it's really just a story. So if I act on it, I'm not going to start because I decided that no one's going to want to hire me. So why should I start in the first place?
Yeah.
But when I really can identify that and say, okay, this is what I'm telling myself. Do I know that's 100% true? Nope. So if I know it's not 100% true, what else could be possible? And then another thing like that Byron Katie talks about in her books that's real powerful for me to use is, and to teach other people, is thinking about who you would be without that thought, without that limiting belief, without the fear. How would you treat yourself, and how would you treat other people, and what would you do if you didn't have it? So just identifying it as just like, this is a thought and this is a thing. If it wasn't there anymore, how would you be? And I think that people really can daydream about like, oh wow, if I didn't have fear, I would do this and this and this. Or if I didn't believe this about myself, I would have all of these things. But then going back to like, that was a story, it's not true. So what can you do to move yourself towards what you want and the goals that you have?
So good. How do you feel like, I think there's a lot of people who they're not aware of their stories. I don't think they take time to even become aware of those stories, or even realize that's even a possibility. So how does somebody even become aware of those beliefs as stories?
One way is like just getting centered with yourself. So breathing and meditation is a huge thing, which I thought was super woo-woo before I went to your thing.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not doing it. But a lot of that was because I wouldn't slow myself down enough to breathe, because I didn't want to be with my own thoughts.
Yep.
But getting on an app like Calm or Headspace or something like that can walk you through those kinds of exercises, that will slow your brain down enough to realize where you're at and kind of help you let go of that fear. So you kind of have to center yourself and just figure out where you're at, like right now in the present moment. I think that's a really good place to start. I think that once you can get there, journaling's real powerful. I do that a lot. I teach a lot of people how to do that, and just kind of, you could free flow journal where you just like write whatever comes to your mind. That's kind of how I like to do it. I know you like to dialogue and go through and have a conversation. Sometimes it turns into that. But just really getting your thoughts out on paper, because then it's real. You can look at it because it's concrete. It's not just in your head anymore.
Yeah. And I think, one of the tips for people journaling is giving yourself permission to be with how you feel, and give yourself permission. Byron Katie talks about this. She talks about judge your neighbor. Our culture is like, well, don't judge your neighbor. And she's like, bitch, we judge people. So give yourself permission to judge. Yeah. To judge them. That doesn't mean that you have to share that with another human. I wouldn't recommend that at all.
Probably not. Yeah. Don't do that.
But if you'll give yourself permission to align with the truth and allow yourself this space to just judge that other human, if you're in conflict with them, well, then, like you said, you can start seeing those thoughts because they're on paper, and you can start seeing the common thread of like, oh, you mentioned one of the questions like, well, what's causing me to think this way, feel this way, experience this certain experience? And you can start seeing it if we start giving ourselves an unfiltered place to do that. Also, I think, and I don't have the exact stats on this. I had a mentor tell me once at episode number 2 with Jeremy Gene Wilson. He actually told me this, which was that science proves or tells us that when we express ourselves, we release 80% of an emotion. I'll tell you guys, it's a lot easier to deal with 20% of your anger or your frustration than the 80%. And the only way I found for me personally, there's been 2 ways. One is like screaming like fuck, just like a primal, scream. That one helps for me. But the other way, more importantly, if I'm trying to find stories, man, it's just journaling, like ruthless, like raw journals. Like if people read my journals, they're probably like, that guy is insane. He needs to be locked up in a mental institution.
I've had like angry journal, like where I'm like sweating, writing stuff out because I can't write. The thoughts are coming to my mind so fast that I can't even write. And I've done that a lot. I've got teenagers, and young adults. So I've done that a lot with the things that I go through with them, and that they're the weird things that they're going through. And I think probably 90% of the root of the stories that we tell ourselves, and that the way that we react to people and the reason we have conflict, it's all based in fear. It's all based in fear of what might happen, what could happen, or what you believe is going to happen based on your own experience. Like all your thoughts and reactions to other people and what they do is based on your own fear of stuff.
Totally. So how would you say someone goes from being, a nice person, a people pleaser, to being what I would say is a good person, having some like of these assertive qualities? We talked about meditation. We talked about journaling. The breathing, like what other things would you say that they kind of need to go from A to B?
I think getting some good coaching. So like going to an event like yours, or hiring a coach or somebody to just for accountability. Because if you stay in your own head, you're just going to keep yourself with your own bullshit. So I think it's good to have a mentor or a coach or somebody to help kind of guide you through that process and pushing you to the next step. So once you can get aware of what's going on and align yourself with like the actual truth, then you can start to heal some of that pain. So some of that might be based in trauma, and some of that might be based on just past experiences that aren't necessarily traumatic, but just what you've come to know because of what you've seen before. You got to heal those things so that they don't keep coming up as like the first thing in your mind. Whenever you face a situation that's scary, or you don't believe in yourself, or you're telling yourself those limiting things. Self-care, I think, is really important. And I've heard, especially with women, like they go back and forth a lot about like self-care is stupid and it's not enough because society tells us that, we're supposed to do all these things and we can't do it. No, like you got to take 100% responsibility for your own self and not put yourself in that victim role, because if you do, you have no power. Victims don't have power, and nobody likes that. So nobody likes to not have power. So getting yourself in line with that and taking on full responsibility of like, whatever happens to me is because of me, and whatever I choose to do with what has happened to me is because of me. And then taking care of yourself and being able to spend time for yourself, whatever that looks like for you. It's not the same for everybody.
Sure.
So it could be, physically taking care of yourself, exercise and eating healthy and taking care of your body. It could be reading and, filling yourself with information and learning. I love learning. So that's a huge thing for me is I just want to learn more stuff. So that's a huge part of self-care. Sometimes it's a massage and a bubble bath. Sometimes it's go for a run or, making things or whatever it is for people. So really just kind of doing the things that feed your soul, because I think that helps with the assertiveness too. And being
Totally.
able to
allows you to have capacity to be able to give and stand in the fire a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so when it comes to standing in the fire, which, for me is conflict,
Mm-hmm.
like, are there any tools that you'd recommend for people? Because I know for me, I wasn't modeled how to fight without punching somebody in the face. Like the household I grew up in, it was very much, it was my dad's, my way or the highway thing. My mother would just kind of like yell, just like yell at you, whatever. Mm-hmm. There never was any conscious conflict that was modeled in my circle of influence. Not saying it was a right thing or a wrong thing, just saying that was true for me. So I've had to go on a journey personally to learn how to have conscious conflict. Because I used to think conflict was bad because I saw conflict hurt people. I saw my father, his way, my way. Nobody listened. So that way didn't work very well. Didn't make me feel very good. My mom's way was just like fucking coming off the hinges and like yelling at you. I felt like shit. That wasn't good. So for me, I created a whole bunch of stories about how anger and conflict was bad for my environment. So I've had to learn how to bring lots of healing to myself to understand anger is just a messenger of I want something to change. What do I want to change? And then how do I, number one, source that myself? How do I don't have to look out there to get the feeling of certainty, security, self-love. I can learn how to breathe and do that here. But then I still have another person in my life, the trainer at the gym or the doctor or the nanny or the contractor or whatever. So what are tools that you found are really good for being able to fight with love, essentially? What have you found?
Number one, I think, is just taking responsibility for yourself and removing yourself from the conflict, because a conflict's a conflict. It's a disagreement. That's not you. Right. So one thing that I used to do a lot, because it wasn't modeled for me very well, with my mom, it was, you just do what I say. I never won a conflict. If I tried, I got shot down, even if it was I don't care if you're right or not, I'm right. And I'm going to win this, right. kind of thing. Yeah. So it was, I think, getting to a place where you realize that conflict is not yourself. Like you didn't do anything wrong. Maybe you did. Maybe that's not the right thing to say because you might have. But that you are not the conflict. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like your self-worth isn't attached to the conflict. Exactly. You're not a bad person. Yeah. You're not worthless. You didn't hurt somebody out of spite. Really you don't. I think that's what you're trying to say.
Yeah. That's exactly it. And then I go through a framework with conflict where it keeps it centered around being assertive. So you talk about what happened. So go through the facts, not like, what you felt like doing or what you thought the other person said, because you don't know that, or what you thought that they felt, because you don't know any of that. So just the basic facts, this and this and this is what happened. And then how did you feel about it? So go through your feelings. Like I was hurt, I was angry, this pissed me off, I felt unimportant, I didn't feel like you were listening to me. So go through that. And then talk about what do you need? What do you need from the other person? What do you need in general? So sometimes it's, I need you to listen to me, or I need you to I feel like I need you to apologize. Whether or not that happens, you cannot be attached to. But if that's something that you feel like you need, go ahead and say it. Or I feel like I need to apologize, or I feel like I need to do something different. So just kind of identify what your needs are. And then what do you do to fix it and move forward? How are we going to fix this problem, this conflict, so that we can move forward from here? So I go through those 4 steps when I go through a conflict, and I help lead people through a conflict. But that was really hard to figure out. It was really hard to learn.
I love that. Like, especially the piece where you're like, this is what I need. I feel like so oftentimes when people are in conflict, they're fighting for who's the biggest victim. Yep. They stay at the facts level. Here's the facts, and I feel this way. And this other person's like, well, here's the facts, and I feel this way. They're like, no, these were the facts, and it goes back and forth, and they just kind of stay at this level of communication of facts and maybe feelings. Most people stay in facts. And the reality, I think a lot of people don't understand, I didn't understand this for a long time, is that both people are right. Like the facts that one person experienced, they experienced them, and for them, those are the facts. There's no reason to argue about their facts, if they're right or wrong. And vice versa. So you might as well just kind of throw out the the facts. It's good to say, hey, here's the context, the facts of what I'm feeling, etc. But as far as like victimizing, no, this is going to stay in a loop of conflict. So I like how you're taking it that step deeper and saying, hey, here's what I need, and I feel like especially if you're in a committed relationship or you're in a relationship with somebody that you like having on your team, since lots of people who run businesses listen to the show, or in the household, whatever, it's super powerful to just be like, hey, here's what I need. And I don't think a lot of people are even aware of what they need, and they don't have the courage to say, this is what I need. Like sometimes my wife is like, here's, this is the context. Here's how I felt. I need you to apologize. And I'm kind of the guy oftentimes when this happens, like, I don't feel like I need to apologize to you. If I told you I'm sorry right now, it wouldn't be real. So I'm not going to tell you I'm sorry, because that would be bullshit. So we'll have to pick this back up until I go journal and figure out what the fuck just happened right now. So that would be
your need, is like, I need some time. So I hear you. I hear what you said, but this is what I need. And this is how we're going to fix this. So I'm going to take this time and we're going to figure this out. We'll come back to it.
Exactly. And, there's another piece of this, I think, for lots of people, especially for high producers, they want to fix it now. And I think in relationships, part of it is like, it's okay to take space. Like you said, it's okay to say, hey, give me 30 minutes, give me an hour, let me go use some tools. And then otherwise, like you said, you're going to stew on it for days, weeks, some people months, and when they could just kind of move through it and find the win-win and, and bam, game changer. You know what I mean? Simple to do, simple not to do. So we talked about, the conflict thing. So how do we find the balance between being assertive and not being the bitch, not being the asshole?
I think it's all in your intent. If your intent is to hurt somebody, or like, they hurt me, I want to hurt you back, that's not being assertive, but if your intention is, okay, there's something that I really need because it serves me the best, and you're able to communicate that. Somebody might call you mean, or they might say you're being a bitch. That happened to me over the holidays, just because I set some pretty solid boundaries that I hadn't set before, and didn't go to a holiday party that the person hosting it is always mean to me, and I didn't want to do it. So there was a lot of pushback for that. But I think just coming in with your intentions of, I wasn't trying to hurt anybody back. I'm not upset. I'm not mad. There isn't a conflict that needs to be resolved anymore. I'm just deciding that this is not good for me, so I'm not going to do it.
Awesome.
And what other people think, one of my favorite lines ever is, what other people think of you is not your business.
Yeah.
It's really not.
Yeah. So good. And I think there's a lot of power when somebody's like, well, you're being a bitch. And you're like, maybe I am a bit, but this is a win for me right now. And if you're open to understanding it, I'm open to dialoguing about it, but I'm not here to like prove to you that I'm not. Because I feel like so many times, because these are words that definitely can trigger people. You're being a bitch, you're being an ass, you're being just like mom or dad or whatever the thing that like is our deepest fear, our deepest wound sometimes. And we're like, no, let me prove to you how I'm not that. There's a lot of power in being like, I could see how you could see that right now.
Yeah. And it goes back to not giving a fuck what other people think about you. Somebody calling me a bitch for disagreeing would have crumbled me 2 years ago. It would have just made me want to fix everything and prove to them that I'm not being a bitch. And there's a justify. But I learned that it's really not about that. And you got to get to a strong place of not being attached to the outcome. Like just knowing ahead of time, someone might be mad at me and someone might call me a name, or they might be hurt and try to hurt me, because hurt people. Yeah, so that's their own head trash. That's their own stuff. And that really, I've made a solid decision based on what's best for me.
Awesome. One of the things I feel led to share about this, and I talk about this at the Uprising Adventure a lot, change our language a little bit, but I feel like somebody's like, well, I'm going to go from people pleaser to being assertive. I'm going to listen to what Amy shared here. I'm going to, go through her framework and I'm going to implement it. And you've talked about this openly today, which is like, it's taking you years. It didn't happen overnight. Like you did become assertive overnight. Let's put it that way. But the art form of like becoming better and better and more assertive and better boundaries and resolving conflict faster and faster and faster, that's a lifelong journey. One of the things I always tell people at our event, it's like, you got to get on the mat. Like if you're in jujitsu, like you can only watch so many YouTube videos. The only way you're going to master jujitsu or some type of martial art form is to get on the mat and just go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And sometimes when you're resolving conflict or you're being assertive, you're going to find like, I took it too far that time. And we can be in integrity and be like, hey, I apologize, I took it too far. And we can learn those lessons, just like, in martial arts or any other art form. We can learn the lessons, apply them, and just get better and better and better and better. And so I think a lot of people don't talk about that. They read these relationship books, and they're just like, oh, I can do it. I can do it. This is a lifelong process where we're getting better and better and better.
Yep. Yeah. But just like with anything, it's practice. You don't know how to do conflict. You're not born knowing how to do conflict. And most people, I would say, are taught a pretty jacked up way to handle conflict growing up, just because family dynamics for everybody there's complicated relationships there, and siblings and whatever. Like, we don't make great choices in friends all the time when we're teenagers. So how we learn to manage conflict isn't always great, but just practicing those things, and you have a little success. So then you go, okay, so I'm going to keep that, and I'm going to keep moving. And then when things don't go quite well, because it won't always, give yourself some grace, recommit. If you need to apologize, go apologize. If you took it too far, then maybe you did. You have to kind of give yourself some time to figure out what happened and unpack it a little bit. And move
or
forward
you may
from
go
there.
the other way, where you go back to the old tendencies where you didn't speak your truth, and and you may, it may be 30 minutes later, 2 days later, and you're feeling some guilt or some internal shame of like, man, I wish I would have said this, or I wish I would have said that. And I can't believe I shut down again. And I think some people can stay in that self-pity trap. And rather than just being like, going back to the person and say, hey, I know yesterday, we thought we resolved it. Yeah, it's not resolved. Here's what's really going on with me, and being willing to kind of open up the can of worms, even though I know it's going to be uncomfortable, but this is the only way to really move forward powerfully, to really honor our truth and being able to resolve that conflict. Because if we don't resolve it, then we're just going to be carrying that story again. Yeah. Right? That unresolved guilt and shame. And that's not going to create good relationships either.
Yeah. And I think that's the difference between being in power and being assertive and being in that fake power. Because that's what I used to think I did by saying, you know what, I'm going to leave that alone. I thought that I'm taking charge of that, and I'm just going to leave it alone, and I'm not going to say anything. But that's not being assertive. That's putting this power mask over fear and rejection and stories and limiting beliefs and all those things. And people put up a front like, oh no, I chose that. I decided that there's some things that are worth leaving alone because you've tried to resolve them, but there are things that are worth going back to. And that's the difference, is knowing what things those are. And being able to do it.
So if somebody takes your advice today and they choose to be assertive, what do you know is 100% possible for them?
Oh my God. Like you can experience this level of joy and confidence that you didn't think you could have before. I think a lot of people lose their confidence, and when they put themselves out there and be vulnerable and let themselves be heard, whether it works out or not, it feels really powerful. So I think if people want to level up their confidence, to be able to start a business or be able to, sometimes it's just joining, signing up for school or doing whatever it is, the next thing that they've always wanted to do. Being confident and practicing being assertive can definitely get you right to that path.
Awesome. Well, there you have it, my friend Amy Clark in the house. If you're a woman and you're at a place where you're sick and tired of feeling like a doormat at home or in your job, or maybe it's both, and you're ready to take back your inner power and feel confident in your own skin, have more fun with your kids, more connection with your husband, and finally get those raises that you know that you deserve, make sure you reach out to Amy. She's a rock star. You can find her at facebook.com/AmyClark5. That's the number 5. So facebook.com/AmyClark5, number 5. Or you can learn more about her at her website at amyclarkcoaching.com. And one of the things that I love about Amy is not only is she's a life coach, but she's this, licensed middle school counselor. So her skill set isn't some cheerleader, rah, pump you up bullshit. She actually has the skill sets and the tools to really dive deep with you, to help you find healing from those past wounds and really help empower you to create the life that that you're really capable of. So if you're a woman who's wanting to transform your life, man, reach out to Amy. She's the real deal. Amy, are there any parting words or advice or inspiration that you feel led to share with somebody who's choosing to take back their power and be more assertive?
Yeah. You have that power in you already, and it's in there. You just have to learn how to tap into it and bring it out, but it's already in there. You got everything you need already.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your journey.
Yeah, thanks.
And thanks for just being an amazing human. Appreciate you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Man, what a great episode. Like, I knew this was going to be full of wonderful wisdom. What an amazing woman, right? It's crazy. Like, I have so much respect for her and her family. I've coached her husband. I've coached one of her sons. I've coached Amy. And man, all of them are just really amazing human beings. And it just goes to show you how amazing of a mom and of a woman and a leader that Amy is, And I really hope this episode has served you, because learning to be assertive, like it's a skill set, right? That if we master, it really transforms our lives. I know it's transformed my life. I've seen it transform Amy's life. And for a long time, I was the nice guy. I thought if I could just be nice enough to people that they would like me, and then in turn, like I'd be able to create the results I wanted. And I'd kind of discovered that nice people get run over while good people get laid and paid. And so similar to Amy, I went on this journey to stop being the nice guy and to really become the good guy. And like Amy mentioned, being assertive doesn't mean that you're an asshole or that you're a bitch. In fact, the exact opposite occurs. And if you listen to any of my previous episodes, like episode 1 or episode 9, then you know that the world is governed by natural laws. And one of those laws is the law of being, which states the world will give you exactly that which you are at your core. So when you're being assertive, you're actually trusting and respecting yourself at a core level. And as a result, the people around you start to trust and respect you more. Now, this was like super counterintuitive to the way that I was raised. Yet I've found being assertive has helped me to attract and work with better clients. It's helped me increase my connection and my intimacy in my marriage, and most importantly, experience more peace and fulfillment day to day. So I really hope you'll take the advice that Amy has shared with you today seriously and implement it into your life. Now, I don't talk a lot about my services on this podcast, but I really do need to talk about this particular one today, because today's topic is something that's near and dear to my heart. And more importantly, this type of topic is the thing that moves the needle for experts and entrepreneurs to scale their business and lead their team. So what is this service? Well, it's called The Uprising, and here's why it's the number one thing that you'll look back a year from now and say to yourself, dude, I am so glad I did that when I did. See, The Uprising is a 3.5-day transformational event that helps you break through to new levels of peace, power, and profits, like guaranteed. And this is not some sit in a hotel room and learn a bunch of shit that you're just going to like totally forget about after you leave the event. No, it's not that. This is a deep dive into your soul to change who you are at a cellular level so that you leave that event completely transformed and equipped with the skill sets to continue expanding into the next greatest version of yourself, whatever that is for you. This event blends the techniques of talk therapy and gestalt therapy, NLP, positive psychology, emotional intelligence, breathwork, meditation, and ancient wisdom into a 3.5-day experience to guide you into the breakthroughs that you don't even know exist yet. It's going to help you begin to understand what makes you mess up when you mess up and brilliant when you're brilliant, and it's purposefully designed to get you out of your comfort zone and into your learning zone. Every person who has attended the event has said it's one of the best decisions they've ever made, and many say it's helped them collapse 5 to 10 years of therapy and personal development results into 3.5 days. And you can learn more about that event by going to www.uprisingadventure.com. Again, that's uprisingadventure.com. And time again, I'll watch entrepreneurs leave the event and go on to create a whole new level of income and impact with ease. So if you feel called to this experience, I'm here to tell you there's a reason that you're feeling called to this experience, and you can go to www.uprisingadventure.com to learn more about the event and schedule a time to talk with me to explore if it's a good fit for you. I limit the event to 10 people to ensure that I get each participant the exact results they want. So I'd love to see you there. And my friend, this episode has been fun, and I'm just going to go ahead and call this a wrap. So thank you for being here. Until next time, my friend, I'm out. Peace.
Well, that's all I've got for this episode of the Anthony John Amyx podcast, but we have plenty more to help you become unstoppable in life and business. So head on over to ajamyx.com for exclusive resources, information, and tools to help you break through to a new level of freedom, purpose, and success. I look forward to having you back for the next episode. Bye for now.